Hey, She Slayers, and welcome to another episode of She Slays the Day podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lauryn Brunswick. Today, we have another write in question that I'm excited about. We're going to be talking about getting butts in seats for events, physical events, and webinars. So we'll get to that. All right. So, first story. Last night, I am a part of creating and teaching a pregnancy class at our local hospital. Now, for those that really aren't familiar with where I live in my area, we have one hospital that does deliveries around here that has an OB department. We used to have four or five. We're in rural Wisconsin. I think that the Wisconsin Medicaid really sucks, and is literally probably the number one reason that these hospitals are shutting down because a lot of pregnant women in our area get given Medicaid. People that you'd be like, oh, wow. Oh, okay, you got that. So, it really doesn't take much to qualify. And, um, and I just don't think they pay. So we have lost in the last 14 years 4 or 5 different OB programs. So we have this one, and it's this main hospital, big network of hospitals in the state. They are very bureaucratic. Let's just say they're not very vaccine hesitant friendly. They're not allowed to recommend chiropractic. They're not allowed according to their hospital rules. All sorts of fun things. So, like 10 years ago, maybe even 11 at this point, somehow I got in the right door to help them develop this pregnancy program or a pregnancy class. And so we taught it for a few years, but then moved it to a Saturday, and I'm like, nah, dog, I'm out. Like, I'm not giving you my Saturday. I was established enough in practice where I'm like, mm-mm. And plus I got bored, because it was like, I've been teaching this class for 3 years now. Then COVID happened. So then they stopped all classes, and then they're like, all right, we're bringing it back. There's this new person running it. She reaches out. She's like, I don't know. Somebody told me that you helped create this. Will you help me do this? So I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. So now I'm at a different point in my career, right? So, back 11 years ago, I was very like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe they're allowing me to do this. And now I'm like, I don't know. You asked me, I'm here. So it's a comfort measures class. So although so most of the women coming are like 36 weeks plus pregnant. So it's not necessarily like I thought initially doing this, like, oh man, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna get all these new patients. All the prenatal chiros in the room are like, 37 and a half weeks, huh? Wow, that's totally my ideal patient. Not. We love you. We love you. But gosh, it's not my favorite timeline. But it's still just, it's fun. You get to meet people and postpartum, pediatric, yada, yada. So last night was the second time that we've relaunched it. And it's just so funny, this dance between because she's talking about an epidural, there because it's comfort measures in pregnancy. And so the whole time it's been like, well, we don't want people to feel bad if they want an epidural. And I'm like, well, isn't that the point of this class that people are coming? And they're like, well, no, the point is for pain management. So we have to cover all. And I'm like, all right. Sounds good. Fine. So, for instance, she's talking about the pros and cons. Definitely it's great. She's talking about the cons, but the cons really aren't the cons. It's like it can delay labor. She's not going there of oh, you're in this web of interventions now and your risk of a C-section just went up. Not talking about that. I'm like, okay. And so it's just little things that I'll sneak in there. If you are going to be looking at the pros and cons of having an epidural, I think you should also look at just unplanned. I'm giving my 2 cents here. Nurse has no idea I'm going to say this. And I'm like, you should also look into the pros and cons of a unmedicated birth. Specifically look for that. And I reference this study where and anytime I reference a study, by the way, all I say is there was this study because I'm not an analytical research minded person. I hear a study one time and I'll just reference that for the next 20 years. Where it came from, I'm like, I don't know. I learned it a long time ago in some book, in some course. I don't know. But anyways, I'm like, there was a study done on lambs where they found that, they gave half the lambs a pain, like they breathed in a gas or something like that, to manage pain. And those lambs were more disconnected from their babies than the unmedicated. So I just think, it's worth looking into why would these crazy people, if it's all the same, why would anybody choose to do an unmedicated birth? Just food for thought. And the nurse is just like smiling, like, okay, thanks, Lauren, for your input. And then like my the thing I get is I get to have a slide on chiropractic. Again, these women are like 30, they're about to go into labor tomorrow. So I'm like, yes, let me talk about how chiropractic could have helped your birth. But again, it's worth it. It's worth it. I'm not going to say no. But, I used to be very specific about what I said. I don't want to upset anyone. And like last night, for the first time, I was like talking about the power, the passage, and the passenger, and talking about how, like wild concepts, people, about like the connection between the brain and the uterus, just kind of going off script. And it's just funny. My whole point is it's so funny. I'm being so cautious in some of these things that we're talking about in the class. Like, I don't feel like I'm not saying the same things necessarily that I would if it was my own class. I'm trying to be respectful of like aware that I am in a hospital setting and they've invited me, but also like fingers up. If I really upset you, then like, okay, fine. Like, fine. You weren't paying me. This isn't like how I built my business. So just kind of teetering that line, but it's just so funny how the like really not even that wild things are coming out of my mouth at all. But you're like, oh, I don't know if they're gonna like this. Like we talked about how, going until 42 weeks is really not that big a deal. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, because one of the OBs, one of the OBs literally is telling our pregnant ladies that there's no point in waiting past 39 weeks. Mhm, That is coming out of her mouth. So anyway, so yeah, so I'm just picturing this pregnant woman going like and trying to be forced to go into induce and being told by her doctor like there's no point in not being induced. Literally being told there is no benefit to waiting until your body goes into labor. Like, you guys, what is happening? But yeah. So then here I just come along being like, oh my gosh, really waiting until your body is prepared and goes into labor naturally does have benefits. And I just picture the patient going to the OB and being like, well, this chiropractor at the class said, and her just being like, ugh, chiropractors. So it's funny. Like I said, I'm not talking about wild shit over there, but just as it's coming out of my mouth and I'm shooting from the cuff, shooting from the hip. What are you doing from the cuff? There's something with the cuff. Anyways, shooting from the hip, I think is the phrase. Like as I'm just throwing stuff out there and I'm like, this isn't crazy, yet I could get air quotes in trouble for it. Oh, we live in a very weird world. And so I felt like you needed all that information because some of you have hospitals that in your area that are like amazing and have like birth wings, and your OBs are amazing. And she. All right. Oh God. We didn't even have time to talk about Love is Blind. Another time. Another time. I do want you to know that like there are podcasts out there that's what they get to talk about. They get to talk just like with their bestie, dissecting meaningless reality television. And I would do so well at that. I just want you all to know that if this fails, that's the next thing I'm going to try and launch is meaningless podcast where we don't talk about any entrepreneurship, any business advice, although that's not true. Because I guarantee you, one of the first things we would start talking about is like how I appreciate the hustle in Clay. Anybody? Love is Blind. Clay, like AD got mad at him because he's like working on the weekend. And I'm like, that guy has a side hustle he is trying to launch with his boat business and renting jet skis. Like, that's admirable. I digress. We weren't talking about Love is Blind. Another time, another time. Maybe I'll do a mini episode on just Love is Blind because you know what? It is my podcast. I can do whatever I want. If I want to release a midweek episode, okay, love it. All right. Today is a question and answer. So I'll read you the question, then I'll tell you who we have on, and then we'll get to it. So this question is from Kendra. If you're wondering how Kendra got her question, well, one, she's an OG. She is like definitely a top 5 fan Uh, and she sent me a DM. It's not the surest way to get a question answered. I'm not going to lie. The chances of me losing a DM, very high. But we did this. If you do want to submit a question, going to our website is probably the number one way to do that. All right. So this is Dear Lauryn. And I do insist that you start all of your questions with Dear Lauryn. If you don't, I will make it up and pretend you did. How do I create buzz about an event that I'm putting on? How to advertise, how to make sure people register. If a free event, they actually show up. We've struggled with this. We've done pregnancy talks in the past with perinatal professionals, and we've had talks that included patients and strangers. But recently, we struggled to get 5 to even sign up. Today, we got 7 to RSVP, but only 3 came, and it made for a slightly awkward talk. Help. Oh my gosh. Kendra, 3 is like my all right, at least there's 3 people here. It's when there's 1 or 2 that I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. Let's just cancel it. So I in I could have had a chiropractor come on and talk about how they fill butts in seats, but I'm not gonna lie, I would have been a little skeptical. I just would have kind of been like, yeah, but are you lying? Are you just not sharing how difficult this is? Because it used to be a lot easier. It definitely used to be a lot easier. I've been around the block long enough to know that you just get dinner in a dock. People would come out for a sales pitch to knowing they were getting a sales pitch because you were buying them steak dinner for free. This is not the world we live in. This is not. So I wanted an expert on creating, buzz around this. So Brenna McGowan is a launch strategist, copywriter, and creator of anticipation marketing. So the anticipation marketing is what really drew me into I want to know what she has to say on this. She helps coaches, course creators, and high end service providers increase launch revenue, call in perfect fit clients, and reduce launch burnout with a strategic pre launch. So she's going to explain some of these terms, basically to apply what she does, because a lot of her stuff is virtual. Okay. But we're learning from experts here. We're learning from people who know how to sell hundreds of thousands of dollars in a 1 week launch. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe they have something to teach us. So the pre launch that she refers to is the period of time up until your event. The launch in what she's just talking about is the actual event, the thing, your webinar or your talk. So there's some gems in here that I think you are going to really love. And I'm excited for you to listen. So let's take a breath and pray. Pray for all the babies and mamas in Barron County. All right. Well, we'll just go with that. God, as we kind of connect my random stories and our topic today, we have as chiropractors such a wonderful message. And we've had speakers on before, um, to give us bravery. Thinking of Roberto Monaco in December of last year, just great episode on giving us bravery, but give us opportunities for those of us. Now, God, I'm asking just give so much abundance to those that say yeah, I'll give my Tuesday night to do a health class, and it may be air quotes a waste of time, and one person may show up. So God, just bless the chiropractors and the entrepreneurs and everybody here who is willing to put themselves out there and be brave, because we have such an important message. We are not selling timeshares here, folks. We're shifting people's trajectory of health. That one person who comes to that pregnancy class who has, oh gosh, even if she gets an epidural, but she has an idyllic birth, and how that ripple effect into the baby and her postpartum healing, and just it can feel so micro when we're in it. And it just doesn't feel like our message feels so big that it deserves a huge audience. And so none of us have an issue with that, of the idea of if hundreds could hear our message, that would be worth it. So I'm asking for the persistence, the consistency for those willing to show up for one, and just bring just continue to bless our message and bring it to as many people willing to hear it as possible. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay, without further ado, here is Brenna McGowan on anticipation marketing. Enjoy. Okay, so I'm trying to remember, like, who have you recently just worked? Was it Cubicle CEO that, or you just did like a big promotion on launching with someone on Instagram? I'm trying to remember like how I found you.
Gosh, I was on Cubicle to CEO
That's right.
podcast, so that
Yeah,
might have been it.
that's
Yeah,
where it was. And so what is like your niche that you help people through?
I help people with what I consider pre-launch. So it's like, what do we need to say and do before we're putting an offer in front of someone that makes them want to take us up on our offer without feeling salesy or pushy.
So how would you like what's the difference between pre-launch and launch?
Right. So launch is when you're actually selling the thing. So pre-launch is the time period depending on what you're selling is the time period that comes directly before you actually go into full sales mode.
Okay. So a lot of like brick and mortar practices that may not be like doing an online sales period of a product, for them, the launch would be like the in-person health workshop or whatever. And then the pre-launch is all of that like Facebook and Instagram marketing up until then.
Exactly.
Okay. So in my experience, and like this, just to give you a little bit of background. So like I would say, so I started in practice in 2010 and started doing like events probably in 2015. And so from like 2015 to 2019, we could just like have it at a cool place or like, whatever, and people would just come. And then pandemic hit, and so a lot of us like had to go online. So like it was no longer could I just be like, "Oh, I'll buy you some cool like drinks," and it was just like people just came if you just gave them food and drinks type of thing. And then pandemic hit, and now all of a sudden like a lot of chiropractors had to switch to virtual because you couldn't do in-person stuff. And getting people to show up for a webinar was impossible. So then like pandemic goes away. And then I kind of go back to my old playbook of like, yeah, I'm just going to have this event at a cool coffee shop. And like, it is like crickets. And so I feel like in my experience, people are just so inundated with educational opportunities. Like courses are everywhere. There's trainings and this and that. And like, what is your advice, like in general, of standing out from all of the noise to get someone to like actually give you their time and attention?
Yeah, I think it's a great, and I think we're all, no matter what industry we're in, like we're just in a busy environment.
Yeah.
Most of our markets are saturated. So I have a few different answers
Okay.
depending on the situation, right? But I'll just speak in general terms.
Yep.
The first thing is we really need people to know, like, and trust you, especially a chiropractor, right? There it is such a personal. I go to a chiropractor, so I'm, very familiar. I've gone to a chiropractor since I was a kid. And I can tell you that the chiropractor that you want to go see is the one that you feel a connection with, like you feel like you know them. And more than any other doctor, this is strictly my opinion, I think it's even more important just because they are like the whole time you're with a chiropractor, they have their hands on you, right? You want to feel
Hmm.
comfortable with someone. So I think there's a strong aspect of personal branding that needs to be addressed when thinking about how do I get people to show up? Because when people, that you hear no, like, and trust all the time, but it's especially true in this sense where if people feel like they know you, they can trust you, that they're going to come and they feel like they know an extension of you beyond that 10 or 15, 30 minutes they're spending with you as a
Hmm.
chiropractor, right? So, and going when I help clients with pre-launch, I'm always thinking too, like, how can we talk about our why, right? A lot of times in Simon Sinek says people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And so really as a chiropractor, you have this beautiful opportunity to talk about why you chose chiropractic, why this is the type of doctor you decided to become. So that is the first thing, is really leaning into personal branding is going to help. And that goes along with, your Instagram captions. If the chiropractors happen to have an email list, a Facebook, right? All of that is going to make a big difference. And I can tell you from personal experience, people recommend, hey, I'm looking for a chiropractor. And this happened to me recently. And someone's like, oh, I know so and so. They did a great job, right? Like
Mm.
they're a great person. Like that is what is going to be really upfront. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we need to simply address why people aren't taking action on a problem that they're having, right? We need to, I agree with you. The courses are everywhere, but what is often missed out on is us. I'm going to say it's education, but it's not, right? It's like
Okay.
education, but differently. It's not like a how-to education. We can get that everywhere. What we want to do is educating people around the problem that they're having. So we may not even realize some of the problem symptoms, things that are going on, either how it's affecting us or how it's affecting us possibly down the line, how there's other maybe symptoms or conditions that you're having as a chiropractor. So making people aware of what's going on is, first of all, one way that you can start getting people there. Because if I start feeling like, oh my gosh, this problem is maybe more urgent than I realized, right? Like, oh, I didn't realize, I know I have neck pain all the time, but I didn't realize the reason I'm limping on my ankle is connected to my neck, right? Like all of those things start to be, all of these things start to change the way we think. And I think there's something about just addressing the elephant in the room. Like, hey, I know you're a busy person, and there's a reason why I do these in-person workshops, because I can't help you with a pamphlet or help you with, another piece of information. We need to actually talk about these things. So I think that's the other thing, is like, in speaking to the actual thing, the person isn't showing up. Why aren't they showing up? And how can we create a sense of urgency, for lack of better words, so that they do want to show up for themselves, and using our content to help promote and do so.
How do you overcome the worry from the consumer, the person signing up, that is just going to be a sales pitch for chiropractic? Like, I don't need to show up. You're just going to sell me something. Like, I get it. You like chiropractic. I don't need to come waste an hour on a Tuesday night for you to tell me I should sign up for chiropractic.
I think it's just, once again, I think being very transparent, like, yeah, I do want you to become my client. I do want you to feel better. Yes, I am going to tell you about this office and how we can support you. But even if you don't take me up on this hour that you're going to spend with me is going to change your life, is going to make your life better for XYZ. And this is what we do in webinars too. Like, it doesn't, even if you buy nothing from me, is still, if you come spend this hour with me, you're going to walk away knowing something. And that is where really getting into the market research, understanding our clients. I think chiropractors, especially, once again, because you have this opportunity where people are in your office, to start asking questions, really getting into the head of the person who's coming in. When you can do that, you can start reflecting that and taking the words of your customer and your
Mhm.
client. We call it voice of customer in the copywriting world. But simply, you can start taking these little snippets of what people are saying and reflect it back in the words that you use, the copy that you use. And so I think it's, people people don't want to be sold to, obviously, but
Right.
people do want to fix the problem they're having, right? They do want to feel better. So as long as, I think it creates, going back to that trust. If you're telling someone exactly what's going to happen, then they feel much more comfortable with the process of what's going on. And I know personally too, when I don't like to feel pressured or backed into a
Right.
sale, which is ironic since that's what I help people with. So I have really created a system and environment where I don't want people to feel undue pressure. So let's be as transparent as possible, but also, on the other side of transparency, let's really figure out what this person wants, how they're saying it, and reflect it back to them so that they feel comfortable with you taking action if that is the thing that they want to do.
Right. So if you are helping a client try and get in this mind frame of using their words back at them, but they don't actually, let's say somebody hasn't really worked with many clients yet, or like it's a brand new chiropractor who doesn't really have patience. How, like, is there any exercises or how do you help someone start figuring out the words that their clients or patients are going to say if they don't actually have the clients or patients yet?
It's a great question. So, first thing is you can ask people that you may know that have done, have taken advantage of a chiropractor in the past and ask them about it. So that would be the first thing. So you don't actually have to have the client. You can use people that have had similar experiences. Coincidentally, I wrote a website, not for a chiropractor, but something adjacent to chiropractor. And I went and looked on things like Reddit and
Oh, no, you
Quora.
should never do that. You should never look up chiropractic on the internet. That's a terrible idea.
But the best part is that there's all like, I remember too, like, there is all of these, assumptions, right? Or things myths that people believe about chiropractic that aren't true. I mean, even my husband is one of these people. He was dead set against a chiropractor, and then slowly over time, right, he started to change
Mhm.
his mind. So, it's interesting to see how people are thinking. And when I'm saying that, I also think too, as a copywriter and inside my own program that I help people with private clients, we're spending a lot of time figuring out who our right client is. So a chiropractor's right client may not be the person that you have to convince, if you will,
Mhm.
that they need chiropractic care. You probably want someone who's a little bit more solution aware, meaning they know they're having some issues with their body. They just may not realize that chiropractic is going to be the thing that's going to help them. But you can find amazing, there's so much available, especially even now. I mean, you could even use AI as a way to do research and start asking, ChatGPT or Claude or these other places to help you come up with some of this initial customer language until you are able to get in front of more clients or customers. And it's amazing what ChatGPT can pull. I'm always cautious. I say that with the idea is that when I help people or clients, which with chat using doing research and using ChatGPT, we have to keep in mind it's taking this pool from like the entire internet. So just because it says someone might say this about chiropractic doesn't mean that you should actually take that as Bible. But it is a great way to do research and help you, especially if you're trying to get that initial copy out before you're working with clients.
All right. So let's talk about. So I have questions about pre-launch, like time frame. Okay. So how long is an ideal pre-launch?
Well, it depends on what we're selling people into, right? I
Okay.
primarily help people with courses,
Hmm.
programs, things like that, and I like 4 to 8 weeks
Okay.
of pre-launch, which is like how long. There's a system that I put people through, which is like I want to be very intentional during this time. I want to build personal connection. I want to establish with the prospect or potential customer that I understand the pain that they're going through, that you want to have time to like overcome, where I don't like the word overcoming objections, but people have a natural objections to, whatever it is, no matter what we're selling. There's ways that we think about different aspects of an industry that aren't necessarily true. So I like having some time to use our content into that. So for you, I would say if someone is trying to get someone to an in-person event, I still think a nice month run up where you are. We don't want to go so far out that people forget that
Right.
what don't show up. But at the same point in time, we're all so busy. I'm booking things now into April because my
Mhm.
March already feels like it's gone. So
Right.
I also think there's something about giving people enough space and time to really to get it into the calendar, get it into their head, and also have time to do those things that I mentioned before. So they will be much more apt to show up if we are using our content before the event to help get them ready and excited to be there. I'm really big on anticipation. and I've developed what I call anticipation marketing. And with anticipation, what we don't realize is that if we can get someone to anticipate a future event, we get the same pleasure as if we actually experience the event. So really thinking about like what put your mind into that of the ideal client. Like what would get you excited to take an hour out of your day to leave? I mean, it's a big ask, if you will, to leave your
Mhm.
family at night, to have to find a babysitter, right? Like think about in your own sense, like what would make you want to go do that? And when you can get into that mind frame and start building up the excitement of what's going to happen, the other thing that I would definitely be doing if you are running these type of events is start collecting testimonials. And it doesn't have to be a formal testimonial, but what have people in the past said about this event? What happened? Like what
Oh,
did they feel that
specifically
was
about the
different? These are going to
event.
Oh yeah, 100%. I would be collecting, information and testimonials and little blurbs about. And two, sometimes like I work virtually, but people will say things to me over Voxer. Sometimes I had this happen last week, and then I'll stop and say, "Hey, could you do me a big favor? Could you send me a message with what you just said so I can use it in my marketing?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, 100%." So think about that. Like, can you ask someone, hey, would you mind just taking a moment and shooting me a text of what you just said? And so I could use it for
Mhm.
my marketing? I would be so thankful. And just if anyone's listening to this, I either say it can be completely anonymous, or if it's okay for me to use your name, just let me know.
That is just a gold nugget there of so what we've previously done is like if we're trying to get hype about an event, we'll incorporate testimonials about our clinic. Or so let's say it's an event for like helping people with anxiety. And we'll throw into our pre-launch like testimonials of somebody who got amazing results with chiropractic, which is helpful, but it doesn't actually help them overcome coming to the event. So having testimonials about like this going to this class is what changed everything for me. Like the chiropractic still might have changed it, but like I like just incorporating it's more about getting them over the hurdle of coming to that event is like that's that anticipation marketing that you're talking about. Where else do
Totally.
you okay, so do you say like cover everything? So let's say we're 4 6 weeks out. Is it like a post a day on every platform? Like how do you have someone like really prioritize their content?
Are Just because I'm not as familiar with your industry,
Yeah.
do your people use email?
Not as much as Facebook and Instagram, but like most people have email lists, but most are not using them. And like
Okay,
so
so
personally with my podcast, so I have a product, a virtual course that I sell once a year. And we got really big into email marketing with this last one. We're like, oh, we built out this Brendan Bouchard, blah, 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 blah thing. And it just didn't move the needle at all. And we were getting like a 50% open rate. But we just sucked at converting through email too. So like I think email, Facebook, and Instagram are probably like the main ones that people would use in like a pre-launch.
okay. So I'm always going to say email first if you have an
Really?
email list. It could be two, right? Like maybe yours didn't. It depends, like what content they were
Apparently my
seeing.
copy sucked. Well,
It could
just
be
call it
so
what it is.
it could be so many things, whether it's copy, whether it's that you haven't been emailing your list very often. So they don't have that, like, they're not feeling that know, like, and trust as much.
Mhm.
And so it could be the fact that the wrong people somehow ended up on that list, the wrong audience who's not ready to take advantage. There's so many different factors. I will say, just on average, you're going to get such a better reach, right? If you have, like you said, you were getting 50% open rates. Okay, 50% compared to a social media 2 to 4%, which is what I think, unless I haven't looked
Mhm.
at that stat in a while, but on average, it's 2 to 4% of our audience that are seeing our stuff on social. That email is going to be such a better bang for your buck. So
Yeah.
I would really encourage. I also working with in my past life, a slightly past life, I worked with a lot of retail businesses, and utilizing an email list is the is the most underutilized tactic there is. It's also the best free marketing you could possibly have, right? The fact
Mhm.
that you could just send an email out. And when we're talking about emails too for this, is that I would not be sending salesy promotional, what most people, most smaller retail establishments do. And I'm totally generalizing here, but what I see a lot is like newsletter blasts, right? That
Okay,
feel
yeah.
salesy. Like I would be leaning into a lot of storytelling during this time. That there's no better way to get into the head of someone, to get them to see transformation. Stories go into our subconscious. So when you can be a storyteller and you can do this over email, you will create a raving fan base, especially as a chiropractor. So that would be my first thing, is always. And I'm going to say, what can you commit to and do well, right?
Mhm.
Like, sure, in a perfect world, you could do daily posts. I used to be a social media manager though, and I know how to do social media. If I had to do a daily post for my business, I I would hate my life. Like it would be like too much, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going into a big promotion of my own program right now, and I start looking at like, what can I commit to and commit to well? And whether that's 2, 3, 4 times a week. I think if you're primarily using social media and not as much an email list, I would really shoot to 3 to 4 times a week. But I
Mhm.
don't think there's a perfect science. There's people out there that post every day and have for years and still don't have clients, right? So it's a combination of what is the strategy of what we're doing, what can we consistently implement, and then what can we look at from our data? And that's the other thing I would mention here. Like go back to your past data and look like what has converted the best and lean more into that if that's what's working for you.
How often during a pre-launch are you emailing then?
I say a minimum of twice a week.
Okay.
And so I think if you can get 3 times a week, it's great. But I think it also depends what you're putting out there, right? We don't just want to email, but we also want to think of quick and easy things to send that don't feel. So I like to break it up. My friend Linda Sadu, I worked with her a while back and she worked on personality quizzes and I got really familiar with DISC. And so if you're not familiar with DISC, there's four different types of personalities. We have our dominant person. That's a
Mhm.
person who takes like quick action, right? We
Yep.
have the influencer who is like the life of the party.
Yep.
Then the S is it steadfast? Why can't I remember? But basically the S in DISC is someone who's more emotional. I'm the S in DISC, right? Like I want
So
to
far
hear
I'm the
your
D.
story. You're the quick action taker.
Yeah.
And then you have the C, which is a conscientious person who this is the person who wants to know the facts, right?
Mhm.
So when you start looking at your content through the eyes of DISC, what I like about it is it gives us permission to do different things, which
Okay.
is maybe we're sending out a meme, a funny meme that we saw. And this would be for social media. Maybe it's like a meme
Yeah.
that you think is funny about chiropractic. Like even that website I wrote, I remember specifically, like I made like an insider joke. At least the chiropractors I have gone to have always worn like polo shirts.
Yeah.
And they
Losers. I'm just
so
kidding.
I like yeah, so you start like making fun of yourself, like, oh, I'm gonna wear like the polo shirt that every chiropractor has worn to work since forever. Like silly stuff like that that would be for the eye. The life of the party would
And so
love a
that
meme like that.
that's establishing trust. That's like you're connecting with them.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And you're connecting to someone who is going to be I'm a SI, so like the I is my second. So like if you can make me laugh and give me a funny meme, I'm going to remember you as well, right?
Mm.
Then you could have a D, which is like maybe it's just like question and answer. You ask set up something. I love question and answer emails and it's such an easy way. What are these common questions that you're getting? What are the common questions or common objections you're getting to coming to one of those events, right? Like, how much can you really help me in 1 hour at this event? And you could like lay it out, just super simple, right? The S would be the story. Maybe you have a story or analogy. Maybe you can talk about how you helped someone at these events. And then the C is the person who wants the agenda. They want to know what you're doing at what time, and
Mhm.
they want to know specifically what's going to be going on. So when you can start thinking of these different avenues for your content, it will help you get more content out in a way that hopefully doesn't feel overwhelming while you're hitting all these different personality types who, I'm not coming because you told me the agenda. I'm coming because you made me laugh because of the funny polo shirt meme.
Mhm. Yeah, again, it's kind of circling back to like, I feel like when I look back on whether it was trying to get people to come to a webinar or an in person event, all of my pre launch stuff was just very focused on the symptom that I'm going to educate at the event about, like just educating about general chiropractic or anxiety or ADHD. And again, not and so, like, I might have been educating people during that time, being like, "Oh, that's interesting. I might use chiropractic at some point," but like, where are the sales pitches at? Is at the event. And so it's like, well, I need you to
Right.
come to the event. And so I just wasn't doing enough focused on like, so it wasn't like, here's objections or hurdles that people are dealing with kids who have ADHD. It should be more like, here's parents who have kids with ADHD who couldn't make it to the event, how they overcame that, or like worries about, again, the event and just really putting it in that. That's fascinating.
So something I want you to think about, and this is what I help people think about in pre-launch. So it is, we're always, how can I say this in a way? We're selling into an idea or belief before we're selling into our actual offer. So I call it this a buyer belief statement. So whether it's an event, whether you're creating a course, right? We have to take a step back away from the offer and we have to quote unquote sell the solution, right? We get so focused on selling the outcome, with the outcome here would be chiropractic care, that we forget that we need to sell the solution first. So the solution here for someone who has an event for chiropractic, if you will, is, let's go to the ADHD, is that we have to get people to first believe in the fact that ADHD probably 80 the way to help their children conquer ADHD is through chiropractic. When I can get that like focused on, then all of a sudden now I can start creating the content of what goes into that event. So and actually there would be an extension on that. Chiropractic is the way that, or I'm sorry, ADHD symptoms can be relieved through chiropractic, and you're going to learn about those at this event. And so you're going to be trying, all of the content leading up to that is not selling as much the chiropractic, but how this event is going to help them get the answers they need for their kid. That is what is going to get someone to show up, not the fact of selling a chiropractic down the line. Does that make
Right.
sense? We're
Yeah.
selling
Can
that
you
like
give me
idea of getting
another?
them there first.
Yeah. Can you give me an example? Maybe just like with one of your clients on like this belief, selling the belief versus the outcome.
Yes. So I'll do it for myself,
Okay.
because that will be the easiest. Is I sell something called the pre-launch plan program, right? The pre-launch plan program is a program that helps service providers, course creators, and other people that have online programs. I help them make more money during their launch periods and do it in a way that doesn't feel pressure or icky or salesy, and it's a better solution for the buyer. So that is what I'm selling. That's my program. But before I can get anyone to buy my program, I have to step back into this buyer belief statement, which is people have to believe that doing a pre-launch is the way to get those results, right? I
Mm,
have to first believe the way to get those results. Once I believe that,
very
then all
nuanced,
of a
but
sudden
yes, I
my
get it. Yeah.
yeah, it is. It's all of us, and it's nuanced in a way, and it's hard even when I write my own content sometimes, or I'm helping with clients, I have to step back and go, "Wait, wait, wait. We're in pre-launch, right? It's different than the actual sales pitch that you're doing wherever you're doing it for your chiropractor. But during pre-launch, my goal is to sell this buyer belief statement. My whole purpose is to make you believe that you have to have a pre-launch for your next launch if you want your launches to be more successful and easier, and you don't want to sell with a lot of pressure or urgency. Once I can get you to lean into that then all of a sudden my solution, when I go ahead and put my offer in front of you, it just becomes a natural, more of a no-brainer.
Yeah. So with your copy, like, do you ever get just so, because there's so much copy that has to be made. You kind of talked about how ChatGPT can be helpful, but you have to kind of, make sure that, but like, how else do you recommend getting copy that's just being said in a different way over and over in, like, because I feel like so many people, they're like, well, I already said it. And then they don't know how to re-say it in a different way.
Well, first of all, I would, especially on social media, I wouldn't get crazy hung up on that because I mean, to sell to someone, right? They have to see what is it like 21 times now the same message. So, and if only 2 to 4% of your audience is even seeing your messages, like
Mhm.
you feel like you're saying this all the time, and in fact, you're probably not saying it as much as you think you are. So that would be the first thing is I wouldn't get worried about repeating yourself. The second thing I would mention is creating, and this is why I love emails first, but you could do this for social media, is the way that you don't get overwhelmed with creating content is creating one piece of long form content and then going ahead and repurposing it in different ways. So I like in my program, I teach people how to take a live video, a 10-minute live video, and be able to repurpose it into all of their social media posts
Mhm.
and their emails for the week. So that would be the other thing. So if you have a longer form piece of content, you could be pulling out a quick quote that you said. You
Yep.
could be actually putting it in its entirety. You can pull out one thought. So that is how you can stay away from overwhelm. Yeah, if you start looking at it like, oh my gosh, I need to write four different, 4 different social media posts and 2 emails, it can be super overwhelming. And I also want to say too, none of this is like easy. So just because you can repurpose something, it doesn't mean that it's like poof, it's all done. Like it does take time and effort to do these things. So I would just say, how can we work a little smarter and not harder and think of ways to repurpose it? The other thing too, for pre-launch that I show people is creating weekly themes, where if you can stay on one theme for a week, it also makes it a lot easier. So you're not just trying to like randomly be pulling these different ideas. If you have and it's also better for someone who's actually showing up and watching you, if they're seeing a theme that's repeated from different angles, that will also be more impactful to the reader.
What kind of a theme would you like, give an example of what somebody would use as a theme for in a pre-launch?
So for example would be beliefs, like a belief shifting. It
Mm.
would be a big one during the week. So,
Or myth
or during the
busting or
pre-launch, myth
yeah.
busting. Exactly. So it would be myth busting. And so you would think about, not only is it the myth busting for you, if we're talking specifically events, it's not the myth of why you don't want to take advantage of chiropractic. It would be the myths that they're believing, like that they can't show up on, right, that they can't show up to this event because they're too busy. If that's your biggest objection, okay, how can we start to, in a empathetic way, not a shameful way, but how can we start, distilling the myth that they don't have enough time to show up? So for example, if we're going back to your example of anxiety, right? Like personally, I deal with anxiety, right? How much time do I waste a week worrying and not being productive because I've gotten worried about something, which has made me not productive at work, which makes me more behind?
Mhm.
Okay, imagine, right, if you could take care of this anxiety in a natural way where you didn't have these worries that come in and take over and eat up hours of your week. If you told me that, I'm showing up to your event. I want to know. I want rid of this anxiety. And all of a sudden, you shifted the way I'm thinking about my time because I'm like, as my natural human being self, I'm like, I'm so busy. I have 3 kids. I have a business. I have a husband who's a firefighter who's gone for 48 hours at a time. Like, where am I finding time to come? And it's like, no,
Mhm.
no, no, thinking about your time properly. You need to think about it in the respect that you're actually wasting so many hours a week, and we don't want you. And not only that, it's hours a week of torture if you're worrying. So like we want to help you out of that. And so come to this event. That is the type of content you start putting out there. People are going to be much more apt versus what most people do, which is come to my event. I'm going to, give you an hour of information. Like you're getting down to that emotional core of what's motivating someone to take action.
Hmm. How much do you recommend in the pre-launch talking about, like, so obviously you said like the C needs to know the agenda. So like, yes, in the pre-launch you're going to talk about like this is all the information we're going to cover. So you're going to walk away, with answers to X, Y, or Z. Besides that, how much effort do you recommend in being like, and you're also going to get this swag bag, and you're also going to get entered to win a drawing, and you're also going to get free food and drinks and a date night by coming? Like, do people care about that anymore? Or is it just like, listen, if you can convince me that my time, I'm going to walk away with my time. Like, you understand what I'm asking? Like, does all that
Yes.
other frilly stuff actually still get people to show up for something?
Well, I haven't done a lot of events lately. I
But even
am
like on a webinar.
Yeah, I was gonna say even with bonuses for like an online program, right? More and more, I would think of this event as I do for the online business, which is bonuses for I'm sorry, or for like an online program. Bonuses work really, really great when they're overcoming a specific objection that would stop someone from buying. So, for example, for my program, an objection that I get is that people that they feel like they need more lead gen before they can actually take advantage of my program. Okay, great. I have a whole bonus around how to grow your email list, right? So that could be something that would help with the objection. I'm going to say the swag bags and things like that. I don't I I'm not going to say for sure. I don't know how much of a needle mover those things,
Right.
like it's just more stuff, maybe wine, I don't know. Like I don't know what people are serving at these things. Like maybe that might be something.
But I
Like
wouldn't
we
come
could
just
have
for
a glass.
wine because I can drink wine at home,
Yeah,
right?
and
Like,
exactly, exactly, like, I can drink wine from home. I don't need more stuff in my life, right?
right.
So, I'm gonna say, like, it's a nice to have. I think that people feel cared for when they are showing up and getting a nice swag bag and that they feel like, "Okay, this is like a top-notch customer service experience,"
Mhm.
but better swag is not gonna get someone to leave their house and their kids and, get out of their
Yeah.
PJs and stop watching Netflix.
Right. No, I know this, like the in-person events aren't like your area, but like just the mindset around people. So chiropractors used to be really big into this dinner with a doc. And so it was like, I will give you, and I see like wealth companies doing it too, where it's like, you can come for a steak dinner. And like that legit used to get people, like it used to fill rooms of like, I'll get a steak dinner. Sweet. And now I just feel like people are just so like, not worth it. Like, we've all gone to that timeshare thing enough where you're like, this
Right.
was not worth the free massage. Like, no, I'm not doing it. And so, but I do still think that a lot of people are just focusing on the wrong incentive to get there, the wrong sales thing to get there. And there's not enough anticipation marketing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah, no, keep going.
oh, no, I was gonna say I completely agree with you. And if anything, to the other, we're trying to get people to buy from us. So we don't want to also have too many freebie seekers as well. And that would be the other thing. If someone's just showing up for a swag bag, I don't know if they're going to be shelling out, if you don't take insurance, hundreds of dollars a month to come see a
Right,
chiropractor if they're coming just to if they're just showing up because they're getting that one free thing.
right. How do you recommend getting people to show? Because I'm assuming some of your people in their pre-launch do a webinar, like a free webinar.
Yes.
Okay, so how do you get people to show up live for the free webinar?
Well, therefore, I would incentivize sometimes. So, like my friend Marisa Corcoran, there's a few different things. Like she does it where she only presents it live, like you can't get a replay from it. So that could be one type of incentive. Like you're only going to get this information if you're going to come live. Another incentive that you can be thinking of is what is something that they would want that pairs well with the with whatever topic that you're teaching them. So I would be thinking of it like, okay,
Mm.
what is something that whether it's information they cannot get somewhere else, right? Because information is free, right? Is information is free. It's always been free. But information is free, really free and easy to get, especially with AI right now. What's
Mhm.
something that they're going to learn? So I would be teasing something they're going to find out that they can't find out anywhere else, or something you're going to give them that they're not going to be able to get anywhere else. It could be too, and I'm just throwing out ideas. I don't think, depending on what works,
Just
maybe
brainstorming
it
here.
is a discount. Yeah, I was just saying, maybe it is a discount. Like if you do show up and you decide you want, we're being transparent of that we're going to be
Mhm.
selling. If you do decide you want to take advantage of this, if you show up live, we'll give you your first chiropractic session for free. Like whatever
Mhm.
that is like you could use a myriad of different ways. So I would, and this goes back to asking our clients, asking our customers, figuring out what is something that you would show up for, right? Would you show up because you're getting this particular, insider information, or would you show up because you know that you would be able to get a free massage or whatever that is?
Right. How important is it? And I think I know your answer because I think you kind of said this, like, how important is it that the thing you'd be giving is in alignment with the thing you're selling? So, for instance, let's say I'm going to be selling chiropractic, but if you come, you get a iPad, like, or, I would show up for,
Right.
but like, again, like people would show up because they want the iPad. They have no
Right.
interest in chiropractic. So, like, is it pretty important that they're like the only people who would show up for the free thing are naturally going to be interested in the selling thing?
100%. Yeah. And I think that's whether it's a free event for a chiropractor, an online program, we want everything to feel in alignment, because it's better to have less people show up that are interested than attract, you sell the iPad. Yeah, you're going to get a lot of people. Maybe by chance they'll hear something that they like, but it goes back to what I said earlier. We don't want to attract just simply the freebie seeker.
Mhm. What what's some of the common, like, biggest just mistakes you see, like, I'm sure you're just on, like, social media, just being like, idiot. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see people doing in this pre-launch period?
Ignoring their audience. So not putting out enough content. That's the big one. I would say putting out random content that has nothing to do. And so there's a difference in my mind between regular marketing content, what I call consideration content, which is pre-launch, and then launch content. So in even as a service provider, as a chiropractor, you can think of it the same way, which also helps you determine your marketing calendar, which is regular marketing content. You can be a little bit more educational. So
Mhm.
the big mistake I see people making during pre-launch is they're educating their audience way too much.
Oh.
So yes, we want to give people information, but a lot of times people are giving a lot of how-to information. They're sending people down, I could see as a chiropractor, you could send people down like rabbit holes that keeps them really busy and making them feel like, oh, he gave this information. Now I'm going to go research. And now I'm coming, right? Like, no, we don't want them researching. We want them, because the internet is full of,
Mhm.
misinformation sometimes, right? Like we want them to come and get the information that we want to give them. So that is a big difference that I see, is really going back to, we want to not over educating people is a big mistake I see during pre-launch, ignoring their audience
What do you mean
or
by
just
ignoring
throwing
their
out like,
audience? Sorry.
well, not putting out content.
Okay, so just not
So
posting.
not posting. Because a lot of times too, it's like, oh, whether it's an online course, maybe it's an event. I'm so busy trying to make this the best event possible, to make this the best masterclass possible, to make this the best launch possible.
Mm.
Then all of a sudden, we don't give ourselves enough time to actually put out the content that does the heavy lifting for whatever that offer that we're putting out there. So when we're in the consideration time, I'm always like, okay, we have to be super intentional with what we're saying it, and we need to be consistent during that time as well. That's when you start making the biggest impact.
So, okay. So I just came out of a sales period, like I said, for my course, all virtual. And I felt like for every time that I would post a reel that was obviously call to action is book a discovery call with me, like buy my course. I felt like I needed to have at least one non-salesy thing, if not two, that was just like, I'm not selling. This is just me being me, like why you love me and you're not unfollowing my page. Like, do you agree with that? Or do you think like, no, dude, you're in pre-launch, everything can be somehow tied back to that product?
Well, and pre-launch is more of like what I would consider like a soft sell. Maybe we're making mentions of things, but that's not the purpose of our content. Once we get to promo, the purpose of the comment, so an actual like promotion period, like for you, for your course,
Yep.
would be like, okay, we have these 5 days where we are just selling, selling, selling. So I would say I'm being much more direct during those 5 days, where during pre-launch, I would be doing more of what you're doing, which is like, hey, I'm creating this content. Oh, and by the way, just so you know, I have this thing coming up. So that would be
Mhm.
how I would mark the difference. When I go into promotion, and that's the other thing. I know people worry about being salesy.
Yeah.
I don't worry about being salesy until I'm selling, right? So I think that's the other part. Like my mind frame
So you're not
shifts where
selling
I
for 4 to 6 weeks or 4 to
no,
8
no, no,
weeks.
no. I'm not selling for 4 to 6 weeks. I am going into a like I am helping shift beliefs, help people identify that I'm the right person to help with them, help them I know that I understand what they're going through. That's what I'm doing for those 4 to 6 weeks. Once I go into promo period, which is a shorter time, then I am going heavy into promotion. And I don't feel bad going to heavy promotion because in my mind, I've like warned everyone to a extent, like I'm going to be selling and this is my whole purpose. And if I don't sell, I can't help you. So the yeah, you're definitely not selling for those 4 to 6 weeks.
I think I understand now why I almost died, because I was selling for 6 weeks. Like, I
Oh
just,
no, no,
like
no.
I was dying. I swear to God, Brenna, I was just like, "I can't keep doing this. I can't. I'm gonna die." So, mhm.
No. And the cool part, and that's why I love talking about pre-launch is because you actually do sell, but it doesn't feel that like heavy, like
Right.
it's more like, okay, I've been doing it right now. Like I sent out an email yesterday and I was like, hey, I am like, this is what actually it was a survey email. And I was getting market research. I was asking people their opinions. And then I did a quick PS like, hey, the pre-launch plan program is opening back up in March. And if you are interested, hit reply and I will tell you a little bit more about it. So I'm having conversations with people. So I'm doing a little bit of soft selling, but it's
Mhm.
a lot different than for you with a program. Hey, my doors are open. I'm selling this. Like the energy that it takes, and it's hard to keep. That's why we're ramping up, using anticipation and momentum. We're getting
Mhm.
people excited for the event, and then we sell the event, and then things come back down naturally. There's
Right.
a natural cadence that's going. So yeah, I for a sales period where you're heavy selling, oh gosh, like 7, 10 days at most. I like
Does that
am like
include the
six,
weekends?
7 days.
Is that 10 business days?
Yeah, 10
Okay.
business days with
All
the
right.
weekends.
Yep, that makes sense. Okay, so if somebody wanted to work with you, how did they find you? Talk to me about your program.
Yeah, so, if you wanna work with me, I do take early enrollments. I do 2 cohorts a year, but I have some early enrollments, so you can just go to brennamcgowan.co, and you'll be able to find I have a Facebook group. You can find me on Instagram at Brenna McGowan Co. It will show you, about my program, so that's the best place to find me.
Okay, and so you do one cohort in March, and when's your other one?
That will actually, it will start in April, and then the
Okay.
next one will start September-ish.
Okay. And is that like how multiple week program or
Yes.
okay, how many
Yep. So
weeks
that's
is
10 weeks program. It's a 10-week program. So I am taking early enrollments because what I have a lot of times is like people like, okay, I need this information right now. So for the right client, it would make sense that can have early enrollment and then you become part of the cohort. But the cohort is set up because a lot of what we've talked about today with copy and messaging, it's really hard to do on your own
Mhm.
and not to have feedback. And so I feel very strongly that having a group and someone, who's an expert in this area to bounce ideas off and see like, okay, what kind of copy, what are these beliefs that we're talking about? What are these things that I need to be actually saying to my audience?
Right.
How can we get it out there? So it's set up as group coaching. So you get live feedback, editing calls with me, coaching calls with me, and then I even have a VIP option where I work closely with you on Voxer. So yeah, it's a very hands-on program
Got
that
it.
is 10 to 11 weeks long, depending on, sometimes we take a week off for holidays and things
Got
like
it.
that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'll make sure you have a freebie, right?
Yes, yes, yes. And this would be a great freebie too, for this audience, especially, which is you can go to brennamcgowan.co /cheat sheet. And it is a cheat sheet. So there's three buyer beliefs that people have to have, I'm sorry, three beliefs that people have to have before they buy from you. And this is also the case with you're a chiropractor trying to sell events, which is people have to believe first that you are the person that can help them. Second, they have to believe that your methods are the thing that's going to help them. And third, they have to believe in themselves enough to get that transformation, right? They have to believe that what they've tried before, is not a reflection of them, of why they haven't been able to solve this problem. So I go over those beliefs, and then I go ahead and show you what type of content you should be putting out before your launch of whatever it is to help shift those beliefs.
I love it. I love it so much. Thank you. I know this was a little out of your like extreme comfort zone, but like I think you did like so much gold there. And I can just like look back on the last year and a half of events that we've done and been like, yeah, I can see why they weren't wildly successful. So I appreciate a ton your time and thanks so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
All right, She Slayers, until next week. Bye.